I almost broke my ribs trying to nail a board to a shade structure while wearing flip-flops. Not because I'm stupid, but because I'd forgotten how to stop. I've been on a hamster wheel of productivity for so long that even here in the middle of nowhere in Mexico, I was still performing, still rushing, still trying to prove that I could do it myself better or faster. But the universe said nope, and I ended up in a thorn bush on the ground. And this is Baja, 3 years off grid, no real neighbors, no meetings, no one to impress. Just me, the ocean, and a shade structure that I decided I needed to finish in one day. I made a choice that reminded me how I used to live, and I prioritized speed over common sense, efficiency over safety, and getting it done over doing it right. The sound of my flip-flops flapping up the ladder rungs should have given me a hint. You know, that hollow flap, flap, flap sound as I was climbing. But I was too busy to listen, too focused on the next thing. I got to the top of the ladder and the flip-flop slipped. And then I went sideways and gravity introduced me to a thorn bush and the ground. And as I was lying there gasping for breath and looking at my flip-flops that had fallen off, I realized what I was doing. So many of us men, we break ourselves on the way to some made-up goal that we have in our minds. Like you spend 20 years grinding, performing, doing all the things that society tells you to do, getting the title, the income, the respect, the house, the reputation, the proof that you matter and that you're important. And then along the way, you become unable to stop. On vacation, you're checking your emails. At dinner, you're thinking about how to solve the next problem. At your kid's soccer game, you're thinking about the next deal that you need to make. And you might have tried solutions too. Meditation apps that just become another to-do on your list. Mindfulness became something that you had to optimize and track. And therapy, we turn that into, how can I be more productive with my feelings? Is there some sort of hack for emotions? Can I do a weekend retreat to deal with my childhood trauma so that I can then get back to work? And then we think, oh, we need to relax, take it easy, get some exercise, maybe do some fitness. And then the next thing we know, it's not, do I feel good or do I feel healthier or more energized? It's, what is my ranking? How much weight did I lift? Who am I better than? How do I win? How do I get the best gear so I can be better at this? Even our hobbies become weaponized. Golf handicaps, marathon times, wine knowledge just to impress clients at dinner. Everything becomes work. Everything becomes performance. Everything becomes proof that you're worthy of taking up space on the planet. And nobody told you the truth. That thing that got you here, that's the thing that's going to ruin you. The drive, the discipline, the refusal to slow down, it's built your life, and now it's going to break your body and potentially your mind if you let it. And that's where flip-flops philosophy comes in. And if you look at them, if you actually look at them, thin rubber soles, a Y strap that holds on by sheer hope, toes completely exposed to every stubbed corner, every judgmental glance, every piece of gravel that wants to ruin your day. They slap when you walk. They can't be rushed in. Try to run in flip-flops and they go flying off. Try to climb in flip-flops and you end up on the ground in a thorn bush, questioning your life decisions. Flip-flops have one setting, and that's casual. You can't storm into a meeting in flip-flops. You can't look professional. You can't intimidate anyone while your toes are exposed and looking all vulnerable. The sound of flip-flops alone is the opposite of urgency. It's the sound of someone who has no important place to be. The sound of someone who stopped performing. Flip-flops are like a force for calm. They're like an involuntary brake pedal. And after my ribs healed, I started noticing the lessons. First thing I noticed, you can't multitask in flip-flops. You can't carry 7 things while talking on your phone. You can't speed walk through a parking garage with groceries in your hands and a meeting in your mind. Because the next thing you know, everything is spilled onto the ground. Your flip-flops are off. It's humiliating. Flip-flops don't care about your productivity. They care about physics. And the physics of flip-flops say, you're not going anywhere fast. Slow down or you'll lose it. The second thing I learned about flip-flop is they make you socially vulnerable, but in a way that actually matters. I wore flip-flops to the office once a long time ago. Not intentionally. I just got out of the gym, forgot I had the meeting, ran into the office, and I was sitting there, and the person across the table asked me if I was wearing flip-flops. And something shifted. No more posturing, no more professional theater, just two people talking like humans who happen to occasionally wear beach shoes to the office. Turns out when you stop trying to be impressive, you start being interesting. When you stop trying to be taken seriously, people actually listen. The flip-flops gave me permission to be unprofessional. And another word for unprofessional is honest. The third thing I learned is that they force you to slow down, like physically. The faster you try to move, the more they actually fight you. It's like the universe built a speed governor into the rubber, and it's saying, here, this is it. This is the maximum speed allowed. And here's what I learned walking to the beach every morning in flip-flops, is you hear different things at flip-flop speed. You hear the ocean waves. You hear the sound of your breathing. You even hear the sound of your own thoughts without the engine of productivity running over them. The thoughts that come up at flip-flop speed are not actionable. They're not productive. They don't really help optimize anything. They're just real. Why am I building this deck shade? Who am I trying to impress by finishing this in one day? What would I do if no one was watching? If no one was keeping score? Do I even like my life? Or do I just like that it looks good? Those questions don't come up when you're running around. They only come up when you slow down enough to hear them. The fourth thing I learned is that you can't run away in flip-flops. These thoughts that come up, you can't outrun them, and you have to deal with them. The grief you've been postponing, the anger you've been managing, the emptiness that you've been filling with accomplishments and meetings. Flip-flops don't let you run, they make you walk. And walking is when you're slow enough to see the truth come up. Flip-flops are like the physical manifestation of Buddhist teachings, like the idea that suffering comes from craving, from wanting things to be different than they are, from racing towards the next thing that's gonna finally make you feel worthy. And flip-flops, they force you to stop racing. They force you to slow down because rushing in flip-flops is physically impossible. They make you vulnerable, exposed toes, the complete inability to take yourself seriously. And that's where real life gets in. They also remind you that productivity can be a trap. Society says you're only worthy when you're grinding, when you're accomplishing, when you're proving, when you're performing. And flip-flops say, try grinding in these. I dare you. And the best part about flip-flops, you don't need a guru. You don't need a $3,000 ayahuasca ceremony. You just need $15 and the willingness to look unprofessional, slow down, and not have to always prove yourself. And here's what I realized lying in that thorn bush, staring at my flip-flops 3 feet away, my ribs aching, my ego shattered. I spent 15 years building a life where I couldn't afford to slow down, where slowing down felt like death, where looking casual meant you weren't serious, where being vulnerable meant you were weak, where admitting that you didn't have it all figured out meant that you didn't deserve what you had just built. I'd turned everything in my life into work because work was the only place where I felt worthy, the only place where I felt like I mattered. And then I left that life and started wearing flip-flops. But the moment I went back to that mindset and tried to actually do work in flip-flops, like literal physical work, the universe slammed me into the dirt. And it took about 3 weeks for my ribs to heal. But it took me longer to realize the lesson. But here's what I now know. The things that make you look unserious, slowing down, admitting you're tired, saying, I don't know, choosing presence over productivity, those are the things that save your life and make it worth it. Not your discipline, not your drive, not your ability to push through it and get things done. It's the things that force you to stop, like flip-flops. But flip-flops are just the vehicle. They're just the doorway. This is about the one thing that you've been running from for the last 20 years. The question of whether you actually like your life. Not whether it's impressive, not whether it's successful, not whether others think that you have it figured out, whether you actually like being inside it. You can't answer that question while you're sprinting, while you're achieving, while you're constantly producing. You can only answer it by slowing down and walking around in flip-flops. Then you'll have your answers. And so here's your homework. Go put on flip-flops right now. Don't change anything else about your day. Just put them on and wear them around and see what happens. Try to perform. Try to rush. Try to impress someone. The flip-flops won't let you. You'll have to slow down. You'll look ridiculous. People won't take you seriously. You'll be vulnerable and casual and completely unable to maintain the image you've probably been crafting for about 20 years. And that's when you'll know you're running from the only thing that really matters. Now, my shade got finished eventually with some help from friends because I learned something that our culture tells us to ignore until it's too late. Sometimes the most productive thing you can do is to stop producing. Sometimes the most serious thing you can do is to stop being so serious. Sometimes the only way forward is to slow down enough to understand why you want to move in the first place. And flip-flops will teach you that if you let them.